You are listening to the Tricorder Transmissions, episode 121. And now, here are Jeff and Ian.
Welcome back to the Tricorder Transmissions. This is our Gold Key Comics series. Tonight, we're going to be covering issue number 31, The Final Truth. I am your host, Jeff Hewlett, and with me, as always, for our Gold Key Comics coverage is my co-chair, Mr. Ian Adams. How are you, sir?
Hello, I'm doing good. How about you?
Doing really well. Nice to be back in the saddle here with you again. We've been doing these for quite a while now, and I think we've seen all manner of good and bad and anywhere in between issues, and looking forward to discussing yet another one with you today.
Indeed.
Yeah, so let's see. This is another one by our famed writer, John David Warner. We remember him as being the beloved author of Mummies of Heitius VII. He's returning again with another issue. Hopefully, this one will live up to that standard. The last one that we had read by him was not quite up to snuff. Let's hope this one is. And we won't hear from him again until issue number 60. The Empire Man. So we've got almost 30 issues between now and then, 29 issues.
Yeah, but I'm really curious to see, like, the issue number 60, was that an okay issue? Like, that one, because, after a span of being away from Star Trek for that long, you have to wonder, can he still write Star Trek?
Who knows? Can he write Star Trek now? We're going to find out.
Yeah, the last issue that certainly brought up a debate, didn't it?
Oh, it certainly did, and I don't know. Maybe this one will bring up another similar debate. Let's see. We still got Alberto Giolitti as the artist, and this was published in July of 1975. We're still at the shorter format, 26 pages, and this one is Stardate 2010.7, which is, of course, sometime in the 2260s. Do you know who did the cover? Is it the same cover artist again, Ian?
Yeah, it looks like it. I forget his name. I don't have it in front of me, but the same guy that's the Pulp Fiction cover looking guy.
Yeah, the pulpy guy.
It definitely looks like his artwork. You can tell just.
Oh God, yes.
The painterliness to it, and especially the crewman figures in the back.
Yeah, they definitely do.
I do love like a few things about this cover. I love the guy in purple. To describe to the listeners here, we've got, how would you describe it? It looks like Kirk and an unknown female crew member and a green-skinned Nick Swardson from Reno 911 are in some sort of like disco ball dance hall.
Yeah.
Except, what do they call that? The punch-out text or whatever on it kind of says that they're prisoners. But I don't know. I love that, and I love the kind of Jetsons-esque, because there's a guy above them pressing buttons and all this, and he's got this kind of Jetsons-esque suit on, which I love.
He does. You know what this cover immediately made me think of, and I don't know if this would make sense to anybody out there, maybe if they haven't seen this movie, but this immediately made me think of The Black Hole.
Oh, yeah.
The Black Hole, because there's a scene in that, I mean, not to the letter, but there's a scene in that where they have these humanoid bodies, and they're in this like carousel that's kind of going around, and there's this little orb that shoots a little laser into their head to blank their minds, and the color scheme of that room and this orb that's hanging here really made me think, and of course the outfit of the guy standing in the front here that you were just talking about reminds me of Reinhardt from that movie, who was the bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah, so, good call.
The people standing up, it doesn't necessarily look the same, but this really made me think of the Black Hole, and this another thing that kind of confused me about this, and I know we're getting ahead of ourselves by talking about what's inside the issue, but the green guy here.
Oh yeah.
That we see now. I thought at first glance that maybe that was an Orion guy, like maybe he was a green guy, same as the Green Girls, but
right.
Didn't work out that way because he's not green once you get inside the issue.
Right.
He's actually kind of goldish brown.
Yeah, and I didn't notice actually until just now that, because remember on the inside, sorry, we're talking about the inside already, but on the inside he had a tail, and I just now, like as we've been talking, noticed that, oh yeah, they did put a tail on him on the cover.
Yeah, it's kind of nondescript. It's kind of intermixed in there. You easily lose it if you're not really concentrating on it. And another thing that I immediately thought of when I saw this cover was Gamesters of Triskelion, because they have these shock collars on.
Right.
And it looked, they actually have drawn, you can see the collar itself, but there's like this little flame ring that's kind of coming out of it, I guess to imply that there's some sort of energy coming from this collar. So,
like a shock collar or something.
Yeah, and the green guy looks like he just came from the gym because he's got a headband on.
Right.
Maybe he was sweating.
Yeah, like he totally looks like, Nick Swartzen's character, the guy that was always like rolling around on roller skates and Reno 911.
Yeah.
Like he totally reminds me of that. It was all I could think of when I saw that cover.
Yeah, it's very weird. The text that you mentioned, the punch-out text here, says prisoners of a powerful secret for life. I wasn't sure if that necessarily reflected what happened in the issue. I mean, I guess they were prisoners for a very short time. We're getting ahead of ourselves again, but again, I think this text could have been chosen a little bit better.
I agree. I don't think that it means they're the same way that we would think of, like sentencing someone for life.
Mm-hmm.
I think it means that the powerful secret is for life.
Correct. Yes, that's exactly what I thought too after reading the issue. But the cover implies something completely different. So maybe it's meant to. Maybe it's meant to misdirect.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah, who knows? But anything else before we move on to the teaser page?
No, just man, I still love this guy's covers.
Yeah, they are really interesting. This one, I love the ink work on this. There's such great shading, especially on the guy's face here in the foreground.
Oh yeah,
the wrinkles on the side of his face
as his head's turned. Yeah,
excellent. And I love his hair too. It's nice. It's wispy. There's a little. If you zoom in, if you're reading this digitally, and you zoom in on it, you can see a couple of stray hairs that are just kind of whisked up on the top. So it's like just little bits of detail that most people maybe wouldn't even have noticed, but George Wilson went ahead and put all that in. The back of his shirt.
Oh yeah.
It also has some really great shading on the crease work on the back.
Totally. I would be proud to have done that. Like,
for sure.
That's quality work.
Oh, it's definitely a work of art. And Kirk's shirt has some great work on it. Some of the bunching, especially around the collar area there and around the waist. Yeah, excellent work. I mean, you can't find fault with this guy's cover art.
Absolutely.
All right. So moving on, we're going into our teaser page, and don't worry, we're not going to start talking about the actual content of the issue here and do any spoilers. We're going to give you the countdown before we start reading any of this text and describing it. So if you want to pause us now and read this book or come back later, give us 3 seconds here, and we're going to start right up in 3, 2, 1. So once again, this is another issue where the cover and the teaser page don't reflect the same thing. So some of them we noticed did. They were kind of the teaser page was kind of a reproduction of the cover or vice versa.
Yeah, basically.
On this one, however, we're seeing I'm not sure if this is a futuristic cityscape or more of a retro type cityscape. It looked almost kind of a Middle Eastern meets Asian to me. Like East Asian.
Well, no, and the middle one is called kind of also even South Asian.
Yeah. But they have
circular
interesting antenna kind of thing sticking up there in the background. So not quite sure what the aim of this is, and unfortunately we don't see a heck of a lot of it in the issue either, but we've got some Enterprise crew members here, and we've got a strange looking guy wearing purple armor with brown legs and brown boots, who we'll find out is the green guy that's on the cover in a little bit. There's a female officer here who I am assuming is Nurse Chapel.
Yeah, it seems likely.
Yeah, definitely. She's been in a lot of these comics, so it seems very likely. In the foreground here, we've got a guy dressed in brown robes, looks kind of like a monk of sorts. And there's two robot sentries here in the front too that are silver with blue helmets and blue shoulder guards on, and they have those kind of cool Robbie the Robot 60s robot arms.
Yes.
Yeah, I love
the kind of the old telephone booth cable kind of arms.
Yeah, almost like a vacuum cleaner hose arm.
Yep.
Yeah, but metal. So I love it. That's a really nice touch. And there's of course a teaser block of text here in the upper right, as they always have on these. I'll go ahead and read it out to you guys out there. It says, "The universe, laboratory of life, countless mysteries, keys to creation itself lie suspended in solution against a backdrop of stars, and the races that inhabit these stars, human or alien, will always seek the answers to these mysteries, although some answers may only come at great cost." So I really like that. It sounds really good.
Yeah, and in fact, I noticed a lot of the caption text, the narration was just really artful in this issue.
Mm. Yeah, I would have to agree. This is a kind of a dialogue heavy issue, and most of it I felt was really on point. I didn't feel like it was non-Trek. I think I'm going to wait for a minute because I have a lot of things I'm going to point out in the first couple parts of this that I thought were really, really well done. But before we move on to that, there's the monk appears to be saying that their weapons are useless and they are now prisoners of the ministry, and they shall remain so for the rest of their natural lives. So there's kind of like a little bit of a melee there, and they're getting shot at by these robots. I don't really know if there's a heck of a lot more to say about this cover from my perspective. Do you have any thoughts?
No, just the only thing that I would like to point out, just for the listeners, yes, he is a man in a brown robe, but he is not saying anything about Landru. Not the same.
Actually, a good point. He does kind of look like them, doesn't he?
Yeah.
All he needs is the staff.
You almost expected to have him the staff, exactly.
Yeah, the biggest mystery to me, I think, is this, because you don't know by looking at this that the brown guy with the armor on is the green guy from the cover. It took me a little while into the issue before I figured out that was the same guy.
Exactly the same. Yep.
Yeah. So he's interesting, though. I'm looking forward to talking about him. So you ready to move into the issue itself?
Yeah, I'm anxious to talk about him too. So let's get to it.
Okay, excellent. So flipping over to the first page of the issue here, we've got some ship's logs that I'm going to read out, and it says ship's log Stardate. Actually, this is kind of the date here flies in the face of the date that I saw in my original, that I have in my original notes. So it says Stardate 21.7. First Officer Spock in command. Myself and a small contingent have beamed down on Kodar, preparing for ceremonies admitting the planet into the Federation. Besides forming a strong cornerstone against the Klingons, Kodar is rich in dilithium crystals and Triolium L, a dilithium preservative. Both are essential to the warp drive systems of our starship. So Spock is taking a landing party down to the surface, and they are greeted by an alien by the name of Toel. He is a kind of a bald guy in an interesting looking suit that we'll talk about in a few minutes here. He is the Kodorian Secretary of Affairs. He's a little bit concerned about Kirk's whereabouts. He's questioning Spock about why the captain didn't come down along with the rest of the party, and Spock tells him that Kirk has been detained escorting a new Starfleet admiral by the name of Talon Khan from a starbase in a shuttlecraft, and they're en route as we speak. So Toel leads the landing party towards some quarters where they can be comfortable until the admiral and Kirk arrive. Meanwhile, Kirk is in the shuttlecraft and they're en route, but they run into what Chekhov calls a freak cosmic storm that knocks out their guidance system. So the shuttle is on a crash course towards a different planet, not the one where they were originally going to. So the landing party is going to be missing them shortly. They crash land on a planet covered with a thick layer of moss, which their readings show is over 30 miles thick. So the sensors indicate that the moss feeds from some high energy levels from somewhere within the planet, but of course their instruments can't get much more data from that vantage point. So Mr. Chekhov observed some birds that seem to be tunneling into the moss and living off of it like parasites, as he says. So Admiral Khan wants to go back into the shuttle and turn on a distress beacon and wait for help to arrive, but Kirk is wary of that and stops him from doing it because he feels that the distress beacon could let the inhabitants of the planet know where they are and it might cause some danger for them. So they sense that there's some indication of life being close by, so they set off with the shuttle crew to investigate the life form. So we're just going to stop here really quick on page 6 because I think there's a lot to digest here. And I'm going to go right out and say that I was shocked when I read the initial ship's log by Spock. This thing has so many Trek references in it. I was blown away that they're talking about this planet being admitted into the Federation. They mentioned Klingons in there, dilithium crystals in there, warp drives in there, and they even, I don't know if this is a real thing or not, because I don't remember ever hearing about this Triolium L, the dilithium preservative. And actually, I hope it's not a real thing, because I love the fact that they add these little bits of extra stuff into the Trek universe in these comics.
I can confirm that was not ever in any of the series.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad. Actually, I'm happy about that. So they add a little bit of gold key flair to the Star Trek universe. So pretty cool. But I really, really love the fact that they mentioned Klingons in here.
Yep.
That is awesome. So these Kadarian people have been helping the Federation in the battles against the Klingon Empire, which that to me is really great, because I think that there's a lot of times in this issue where I think that Warner shows his Trek knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus, it kind of, like, I don't want to skip too far ahead, but there's another planet in the system, right? Yeah. And they're not like united, right? Because, you know, that's the other planet is the one that Kirk and that shuttle all landed on. And so you normally would think, well, you know, if you're going to admit a planet into the Federation, you know, maybe the whole solar system should be, you know, a peaceful one. On the other hand, you think about the sort of political situation that was going on during the original series with the Klingons, especially after the Organian Treaty, right? Where they basically just had to get like all the allies they could so that they could kind of build up, you know, it's almost like, in fact, it must have been inspired by, you know, the Vietnam era, which was a grow out of, I forget what the policy was called, but it was like the whole thing was, you know, with the, you know, West versus, you know, the, like the whole socialist thing. And,
right.
And you kept having to, you know, well, supposedly we wanted to keep, building these kind of firewalls against the expansion of communism. Right. And that was why we went to Vietnam and Korea and places like that, right? And I think that must have influenced the way that they did the sort of Klingon thing, who were, you know, they were allegories for, I want to say the Soviets, right? And yeah, like this completely fits in with it, right? The fact that this system is not united and they've got these weird sort of mysterious political entanglements going on completely fits in with this to me, that it's something where they're just trying to check the Klingon Empire rather than like do their due diligence before, you know, that they would normally do before admitting a new member into the Federation. It completely fit for me.
Yeah. Actually, going back to one of your earlier points, that was something that had occurred to me as well, is that since there are neighboring planets that we're going to find out about, and we know that the Kadarian people have had interactions with the Klingons, it would only stand to reason that we would want to check on these other planets that are nearby to make sure that the Klingons haven't already established bases there or claimed those planets in the name of their empire. So if we're here,
excellent point.
getting the Kadarians on our side, they may already have the neighboring planets, so you're going to be at a disadvantage by trying to set up with the Kadarians. So a lot of political intrigue there, and I love the fact that that's incorporated into this issue. So, and unfortunately, it's not mentioned again, but I like the fact that they kind of peppered that.
Yeah, but exactly. I mean, it sets the tone for the rest of the issue.
It does. It does. Let's see. Oh, speaking of bringing new things in to the Trek universe, we have a new Starfleet admiral that we have never heard of before, by the name of Talon Khan. I thought it was an interesting choice of name. Khan spelled differently than Khan.
Khan spelled the way that Holly Amos hates.
Yeah. But I wonder if Warner, this is probably a silly thing to say, but I wonder if Warner was kind of giving a nod to Space Seed by reusing the Khan name. Although he's not a villain, but I like the fact that they use that name. But he's a very different sort of alien than we've seen in Gold Key before. I say he struck me as somebody we would see like on the animated series.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I mean he's still humanoid.
Yep.
But he's got he's got a different kind of skin going on. His face is not quite human. He's got the tail. Yeah, the whole thing there. He struck me as very alien, and I appreciate that. Like you, whenever they bring an alien,
Absolutely. And I also I don't want to delve too deep into it because there's some other things about him that pop up later that I think are better to talk about in the moment. But I think overall, when all is said and done in this issue, I think he may have been a better character to have on the animated series just to explore all of the things that he could do. So, I will point out some of those as we go through. I'm sure you already know what they are. Right. But moving along, I like that also on, actually, we haven't gotten quite that far, but on page 4, I'm jumping ahead a couple of pages from where we are. Do you have anything that you want to bring up between pages, the first page and the end of the next one?
Just one thing. That Toel guy, the Quadarian Secretary of Affairs, it sure looks like he was trying to make, the Vulcan salute.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
And just kind of failed by one finger.
Yeah, he's got his pinky sticking out a little bit. I didn't even pick up on that until you just said that.
Boy, this is an issue where you can't help but just keep referencing things that happen later on. But the first time I read that before reading the rest of the issue, of course, I thought, what if Giolitti had just moved that one finger out over, and then it would have still made sense. That's all I'm going to say until we get to that part of the comic, but it just still would have made sense.
Fair enough. I looking at that same panel though, Toel really looks like Lex Luthor to me.
Yes, I thought that the entire time, especially the pinkish color scheme.
Yeah,
because in the comics he had a pink outfit, and especially on the Super Friends, if you remember that show.
Yep. Oh, of course I do. And I love the shiny black, plasticky looking, almost suspender like parts of his overcoat there. The shading on it is pretty neat looking. So on page 4, panel 1, Kirk. Well, actually, I don't think this is Kirk's dialogue. This is Kirk's captain's log. There's a supplemental, so this is kind of Kirk's dialogue. It says, Captain's log supplemental, Spock has been sent ahead with the Enterprise to Kodar. The Vulcans long ago established diplomatic exchange with Kodar, and Spock already is familiar with their customs. Again, here we are giving some more backstory that the Vulcans, who we know were in space prior to the human race, they're already out there, meeting other races, setting up, diplomatic relations. And I love the fact that we know that the Vulcans have already been there and that we get that little bit of expose.
Right, which is just another kind of bread crumb. And the thing that I was just talking about with the Lex Luthor guy at Toel.
Yep.
I can't say it yet.
Yeah,
We got to get there, but I can't wait.
There's some interesting stuff coming down the pike that we'll bite our tongues for the time being. But hey, Chekhov gets a speaking part.
Yes.
Nice that he's in there and gets to do some stuff.
Yeah, he's not just referenced.
Yeah, so this is good. We're making progress here.
And I love the sound effect as the shuttle crashes into the goop.
Oh, I was going to ask you to do that.
Gloomf.
That is a really weird one. GLOOOMPHH.
Yeah.
Gloomf.
Oh, it's so good.
That is great. I guess it would sound like that if it was hitting a kind of a marshy, mossy, thick liquid, maybe. But let me tell you, that poor Galileo.
Oh, yeah.
That thing can't catch a break.
They should just get another shuttle, really. I mean,
yeah, my God.
This one's cursed at this point.
Yeah, and I think is the call sign on the number on the side of the Galileo correct? NCC 1101-7?
Yeah, because it was the Galileo 7.
Yep, there you go. So they got that right,
just
too.
Because there were 7 people aboard.
Go Giolitti. But yeah, poor thing crashes again. This shuttlecraft, every time it appears,
I know.
something bad's happening to it. But did the whole planet of parasites thing stick out as odd to you? They say the moss is like a parasitic moss, and then there's birds that are parasitic on the moss, so it's parasites eating parasites. Right,
like parasites all the way down. And it was also odd that they could just basically look at them and be like, oh yeah, look, they're parasitic. Like, don't you need to observe their behavior for a while before you can come to the conclusion that a particular species is parasitic? You know?
I would think so, but apparently not in Gold Key.
Like, my cat is sitting next to me, and I wouldn't just glance over and be like, oh, he's parasitic of humans. Like, no. It comes from 12 years of living with him and having to constantly feed him. And
you know that he's parasitic on you. No.
I kid.
Right.
But yeah, like, in seriousness though, like, that did strike me as odd, and how it was, like you were saying, just parasites upon parasites, like parasites all the way down. And it didn't seem to serve a story purpose other than to be something that the Galileo crashed into.
Exactly. Yep.
Because if I'm remembering correctly, like, it's not referenced ever again.
The moss?
Oh wait, no. Oh, yeah, there's the farmers, right?
Yeah, it's not really it's not as big of a part of the issue as they make it seem like it's going to be.
Right.
In the beginning, because they spend a little time talking about it and looking at it, and it comes up briefly later on, but I don't think they really describe exactly how it's used, but it's just really an energy source. But again, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. They could have probably shortened the whole moss thing to like 2 panels.
More than likely, but then again, Gold Key.
Yeah,
again,
par for the course.
So one other thing that I saw in this that I thought was interesting is that on page 6, panel 2, you see Admiral Khan is pulling rank on Captain Kirk, and Kirk calls him an administrative admiral.
Right.
And he has little experience in the field. So does that mean he's like a paper pusher admiral? He's got a desk job?
Yeah, and is that like really a thing?
I don't know.
Do you get to the top of the rank structure without having any experience in the field?
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, I would think that once you had to have plenty of experience in the field to rise through the ranks and get up that high, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Like it almost felt to me like instead of making him an admiral, he should have been like some kind of commissioner, like we had seen on several of the other episodes. And it would have been one word, but that one word would have completely, done away with this entire like need for a debate.
Agreed. Or they could have made him an ambassador even.
Yeah. Also true.
Yeah, he could have been an ambassador because that's essentially what he's supposed to be doing here, right?
Exactly. That would have fit in with the mission that they're on.
Yeah, it's because they're trying to recruit this planet into Starfleet, and this could have been the olive branch alien who was going to come in and do the tense negotiations.
Absolutely.
To get them in, but there is a couple pretty good shots of Admiral Khan here, especially on page 6. You get 2 pretty good frontal shots and 1 shot from the back. And I mean, you see the tail there, you see the headband thing, you see the purple armor. You get a look at his face, which is human-ish, but not quite.
Yeah, it's almost like a blobfish that's just been kind of molded to look more like a human face.
Yeah, or maybe he had that surgery that Kirk had in the previous issue where they made his face malleable in the clay-like substance. But yeah, it does kind of look almost like almost a bloated or waterlogged human face.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really like the way that he's drawn. I'm really curious about the kind of, whatever minimal evolutionary history must have gone into thinking of his character design. But you can tell looking at him that there was some.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wonder if it was the direction of the writer that made him, or that was like completely up to Giolitti's whims.
Yeah, I wonder about that too, because he, aside from the skin color, basically looks the same on the cover, and that was a different artist.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I wondered that as well.
Yeah, I guess we will never know how that worked out. But pink phaser again, by the way.
Yes,
phasers, but they look good. They look like phasers, just the wrong color.
Yeah. I think Giolitti's getting the hang of them now.
He is. Anything else before we move on to the next section? We got a little longer section coming up.
No, let's move on.
Okay, so we are back on Kodar. Spock is a little worried because the shuttlecraft is overdue, so he radios to Starfleet, and Starfleet's tracking information indicates that the captain's shuttle had crashed on a neighboring planet called Tristis, which is interesting that Starfleet knew the ship crashed but didn't do anything about it. Toel tells Spock that the shuttle crew is in serious danger. He explains that Kodor once had good relations with Tristis. By the way, this is another Gold Key flashback moment here. We're going back in time. The Lex Luthor-looking guy is doing this whole flashback sequence.
Yeah, and I just want to point out, getting almost ahead again, this is one of 2. This is like the most Gold Key. Yes,
we've got another flashback later on. So Toel is talking about how Kodor and Tristis once had a good relationship. The Tristans were a very advanced civilization, and the entire culture of that planet was directed towards one unifying goal, which was discovering the secret of life itself, which I guess a lot of us can relate to. One day, all the Kodarian citizens on Tristis were forced to leave, and communications were completely cut off with no explanation at all. The Kodarians sent representatives to try to contact the Tristans and figure out what had been going on, but all they got in return was a warning to stay away and a threat that anyone who attempted to penetrate the defenses would be made prisoners of their ministry forever. So, meanwhile, back on the planet of Tristis, Captain Kirk and the crew on the shuttlecraft are coming across a huge city, and they take some readings and find that the city is made up of materials that were created from the compounds that made up the moss. So again, we've got plant-based stuff on this planet. Yeah, it's kind of like the shore leave planet. So Kirk tells them to set the phasers on stun, and they go towards the city, and they are met by a man who is wearing a robe and several of the hovering robots that we saw on the teaser page. They are ordered to lay down their weapons and that they are now in the custody of the ministry. So a little bit of a melee ensues. One of the security guards tries to attack the robots and gets killed, and Kirk and the rest are taken prisoner. So back on Kodor, Spock asks Toel to get the other leader of Kodor. They have these co-leadership thing going on. This leader that no one sees by the name of Arma to agree to a rescue attempt, but it is refused. So Kirk and others back on Tristis again are in that domed chamber that we saw on the cover page.
Yeah, the disco dance hall.
The disco dance hall. They find that they're being observed by some other humanoids who are very similar in appearance to the Kodorians, and they are above them looking down. Tonar, who is identified as Science Lord for the city-state Chantil, or Chantil, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, I'm going to call it Chantil, tells Kirk that they are being imprisoned for a long time, and explains that they now have disciplinary collars that have materialized around their necks. So Admiral Khan attempts to attack the Science Lord, and this is an interesting part because there's a little, almost like a helicopter propeller appears out of Khan's back, almost like an Inspector Gadget type.
Yeah. I was wondering if you were going to notice that.
Yeah, completely unexplained. And it doesn't actually even look nearly big enough to support his weight. So
nope.
Very strange. So that doesn't work, and he's electrocuted and forced back down. I guess now they know that the paralyzing abilities of these shock collars, and the Science Lord says that he hopes that he doesn't have to do any further demonstrations of their capabilities. So on Kodor the next evening, the landing party members overcome the guards at the palace in order to reach the leader Arma, but Spock sends the rest of them away so that they don't get caught. So if anybody gets caught, it's just him, and the rest of them won't be hanging out there guilty. So Spock is outside of Arma's room, knocks out another guard with a nice chop move, and Spock enters Arma's chamber and is shocked by what he sees. He exclaims, it can't be, but it is. We never suspected." And
Dun,
this is
dun, dun.
This is the dramatic ending to that section, but I think he did know because he alluded to it a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
We already mentioned there's a flashback sequence that started on page 7, panel 1, and I like the fact that it's the way that they draw that first panel. I thought was really cool. You've got Toel, he's got his kind of a finger wagging sort of look, and then you see the two planets in a little part of the panel next to him, and he starts to talk about their past. There's some really weird looking ships here.
The aircraft?
Yeah, on page 7, and it's the 1, 2, 3, fourth panels in the lower left-hand corner. They look kind of like rockets with wings on them.
Yeah, they almost look like the Firefly.
Oh yeah,
like almost.
Yeah, interesting. Or they actually, they also kind of almost look a little bit like Zephram Cochrane's warp ship from
the Phoenix.
Contact. Yeah, the Phoenix. The nacelles didn't pop out the size of these. Have actual wings.
Yeah, but they popped out the nacelles, but then the nacelles fell off, and they were like, okay, well, I guess we're
whatever.
Now.
I'm just gonna go this way. But these are apparently the security ships for the planet Tristis. This is part of the security detail that keeps people away from the planet. So I thought that was interesting that Giolitti designs all more and more different little ships.
You can tell he really enjoys it.
But I thought during the flashback sequence, there's an implication that the Kodarians have encountered many other alien races. So not just the Klingons and not just the Vulcans, but they've had contact with lots of other alien races. So this is a pretty rich, well-traveled race, or at least well-visited race.
Right.
Yeah. So interesting that the Federation's vying for their support. I wonder if lots of other races have also vied for their support. There's nothing here to indicate that they've refused to other people's offers to join different alliances, but I just like that there's a little history there.
Totally. And going back to what I was talking about earlier, like you could totally see this being as a system that was like somewhere close to the Klingon border.
Oh yeah.
That would have been, the Klingons would have been trying to win them over as well, so that they could in turn get their strategic chess move on,
Yeah.
And it very well could have been, because we know that the Orions are near there, there's like all sorts of species that are in that area, and that would completely fit in, because you're right, it does have that feel.
It does. And you wonder if, the Vulcans have been there. You wonder if the Romulans stopped by. You never.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, you never know. But let's see, page 8, panel 4. I thought, this is what really kind of threw me on this Admiral Khan character, and what the nature of his origin might be. Because he is assuming like a defensive. This is when they're getting caught, and they're being told that they're now in the custody of the Ministry. Admiral Khan kind of crouches down in this defensive posture and hisses, as if he's some sort of a lizard or a reptilian.
Yeah.
But he doesn't look reptilian to me, because if you're looking at page 8, in the upper left-hand corner, you see a really tight close-up of his face, and he doesn't really look all that reptilian to me. But I guess maybe he looks almost like a demonic type figure, doesn't he?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's like almost he does have some kind of toad-like features.
Amphibious, maybe.
Yeah.
But he's got almost a devil's tail, because he's got that triangular tip.
Yeah, the kind of spearhead.
Almost like a tail he could use as a weapon.
Yeah, and he's got hair.
Yeah.
Like a head of hair.
That's the same color as his skin, no less.
Yeah. And I wonder if like the color of his skin in the comic versus the color of his skin in the cover is another one of those sort of, printing issues. Like the same reason that the sky is pink or orange or yellow or blue from panel to panel.
Good call. Yeah, and if he was green, you're right. If he was actually green in the book, he would definitely be lost on some of these frames. Because there's only so many greens they can use, and they're using a couple.
Right.
Here. So they may very well have made a choice to ink him in a different color that stood out more, as though he wouldn't get lost. But so yeah, it doesn't really clear up a lot about why he's hissing.
No, but he's still it's one of those things that makes him interesting. He was definitely like one of the most interesting characters in this issue, I thought.
Oh, for sure. For sure. It's one of those situations where I wish they'd have given us a little more backstory on him. What race does he belong to? What planet did he come from? How were they part of the Federation? Because we've never seen anybody who looked like him.
Right.
In any shows, even animated series, any series had nothing that looked like him. So I'd be interested to hear a little bit more of a backstory for him. But and I'd like to hear a little more backstory about this floating robot on page 9, man.
I love these guys.
They look he looks almost like a tabletop robot.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's got that speaking of the black hole, oh god, what was the name of the robot in that?
Vincent,
yeah, thank you. Like Vincent with periods after each.
Yes.
Because his head kind of looks like it pops out like Vince's. See how it's got the kind of cylindrical thing with the big kind of hat on top?
Yep. Yeah, if anybody out there hasn't seen the black hole, the robot that Ian is describing is kind of got a round body with a tin can looking head that kind of pops up out of its body with the eyes inside of it. So I'll see if I can post a picture of what Vincent looks like on the website.
When did that movie come out?
1979.
Ah, so it was after this. Okay.
Yeah, and I wish I could take a picture and put it up right now for everybody to see. I'll take one and put it up once I get the episode done. But I actually have a Vincent action figure right above my computer where I'm recording this.
Oh, my dad had one when I was a kid. It wasn't an action figure so much as a statue with a head that retracted.
Oh, mine is pretty much solid. The head doesn't go up and down. He's more of like a model, like a small scale model, with a little pedestal that he stands on. But he looks really cool. So
is the pedestal clear by chance?
The pedestal's clear.
Is it? Would you say it's maybe only about like 2.5 inches tall?
The pedestal?
No, like the whole figure.
No, the whole model's probably 4 to 5 inches tall.
Okay, so it's probably not the same one that my dad had then.
Probably not. I think this one came out within the last 10 to 15 years.
Okay, but yeah, there's still definitely a resemblance there in that it's funny that you brought up the black hole earlier because yeah, it must have just been part of that whole 70s sci-fi, style that was permeating the culture.
It definitely looks like a cross between what a 60s robot was and like what Buck Rogers robots were.
Yeah.
And it's like I was kind of like a merging of Tweaky and Vincent and Robbie the robot. Everybody's kind of shoved together in one robot.
Yeah.
But he's got no legs. He's hovering.
Right. No, he just hovers.
Yeah. Pretty cool though.
Yeah.
And
I like those guys.
There's another the panel right below that. You see one from behind, and you see another one from a different angle. Pretty cool. I really like these. I wish they had done a little bit more with them, but
yeah, we don't get a whole lot of backstory on them or anything.
No.
Just a sort of vague intimation of their purpose.
So let's see. As we move through this one, we ended on page 14. So we had a lot of pages to cover here. Dr. McCoy also made an appearance during this sequence. And I believe Uhura, it's hard to tell because they don't name her.
Yeah, but I mean, it looks like Uhura.
Yeah, I think it is. And more shots of Kirk and Chapel and Chekhov in there. So the almost the entire bridge crew is represented here, with the exception of or the exception of Sulu, rather.
Which would be an ill-advised landing party.
Oh, for sure.
Except in this case, it's a diplomatic mission, so you could kind of see it, right?
Yeah, sure. It makes
like this is one of those few times that
at least they left Sulu and Scotty back on the ship. But the ship does not make an appearance at all.
Yeah, I did think it was a little weird that they just sent shuttles, but then it occurred to me that it must have been a storytelling decision so that they could have a reason for Kirk to crash, on, what was it called? Tristan, yeah. Yeah, Tristus, that's right. So I think that was probably the only reason that they ended up taking shuttles instead of just, popping up on the Enterprise and then beaming down.
Plot device.
Yeah.
As a plot device. Let's see. The helicopter thing on page 12, panel 2. You see that helicopter blade come out of Khan's back.
Oh, right.
Khan's back. I don't even know what to say about that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it was. I feel like if that had not been drawn, like if you could Photoshop it out, right? But otherwise keep the panel exactly the same, I think it would work a lot better, because then it would be like, oh, he's jumping really high because it's a function of his alien physiology or something, right?
Yep. But instead, Instead, there's a hatch in the back of his suit that opens up, and out of it protrudes a very thin rod, and at the end of that rod is a rotating blade that I guess we are meant to believe is helping him hover or jump higher to attack these humanoids. But
you know what it kind of reminds me of? I don't know where I saw this. Something, just a vague memory from my childhood of like some sort of old trope that had shown up a few times, I think. There were these beanies that kids would wear.
Yep.
With propellers on the top.
Yep, propeller head beanies. Yep.
And occasionally you would see in a cartoon or a comic or something where they would spin the propeller and it would actually lift them off the ground.
Yeah.
And it completely reminded me of that, because even as a kid, I knew that was pretty preposterous.
Pretty propeller-osterous. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'll edit that part out, or maybe I won't. But no, I thought of Inspector Gadget instantaneously. I went right to Inspector Gadget.
Yeah, Inspector Gadget. Yeah, that was another iteration of that trope.
Yeah, this is weird. I really wish that we had more expose on Admiral Khan, and I thought it was interesting that he was a yet unknown race and his physiology was interesting. His tail was cool, and now we get to know that he's got some sort of technologically advanced suit that he's wearing.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at the back of the suit, I don't want to, beat this to death, but if you look at the back of the suit where that helicopter blade is coming out of, there's a little hatch, a doorway that opens.
Yeah.
It looks to me like this stuff is coming out of where his body would be.
Yeah, like is he a cyborg?
Cybernetic?
Yeah.
I
had that same thought, but yeah.
I don't know. It would be interesting to find out. I don't think he'll appear again in any gold keys because
yeah, I'm doubting it.
Warner doesn't write another one for 29 more issues, so I doubt we'll see him again. I guess we'll just have to make up our own backstory for him at some point.
Yep.
But that's okay. Let's see. Oh, one other thing that I wanted to bring up that I thought was really cool. On page 13, the third panel in the middle depicts a fight scene.
Oh, yeah.
Where a bunch of robed figures who are the Enterprise away team are fighting a bunch of guards. And there is what I assume is Uhura doing this really neat kung fu type move where she's kicking one guy in the face while she's palming another guy in the face.
Right. Yeah, and like assume it's Uhura because out from under the robe you see the legs stick out and it's like a bare skin with boot.
Yep.
And the skin color is consistent with Uhura's skin color in the earlier panels when we saw her.
Exactly. And she's also got a red sleeve that's sticking out from under the other sleeve. So we can I would definitely say this was intended to be Uhura. And I think that is really freaking cool that she's got that kind of fighting prowess.
Like we've seen her kind of pull that out a few times in the comic. Like that's not just something that just came out with the Kelvin movies.
No,
like
right.
She's always kind of been like, had a martial artist bent to her, at least in Gold Key. I can't recall her having any of that in the original series, but
no. And the panel, the second panel right above that, there is a hand doing a chop motion with a red sleeve on it, which I assume is also Uhura.
Probably, yeah.
So she's taking dudes out left and right here, which I think this is great. I love it.
And then, another like sort of repositioning of hands, like in my mind, like in my head canon, when Spock on the last panel there, he's pretty clearly punching the guy, right?
Yep.
But I kind of read that as well, it's just a poorly drawn Vulcan neck pinch.
Yeah, again, I don't think we've seen a Vulcan neck pinch in the comics yet.
Yeah, not one. Even though, like, isn't that kind of weird? Because that's like one of the iconic things that like most people know. Even if they don't know anything about Star Trek, they know about the Vulcan neck pinch.
Exactly, and I think Warner has shown, especially in this issue, that he's very familiar with Trek. You would have thought. I mean, if he knew about the Federation and dilithium crystals and the Klingons, he would have known about the neck pinch, and he could have incorporated it in it. This would have been a perfect place to use it.
Yeah, totally.
Perfect place.
Absolutely.
To use it. So we're getting towards the end of the section that we have stopped at, and there's just some dialogue here before Spock opens the door and is shocked by what he sees. Is there anything else that you want to bring up before we move on?
Can we just comment on how cool of a title? Like, I just love this sentence. We are the Ministry of Science, and I am Science Lord. Every time. I read that like 50 times, and I was just like, oh my God, that is so cool. Like, if I was in a band, I would call the band the Ministry of Science, and like the front man. Lord. Yeah, it would be the Science Lord.
There's dialogue by these guys later on in the issue that's makes me think that they speak a certain way. And that's just part of who they are, because I think it's implied that they're a very learned people, that they spent their lives, in the pursuit of scientific knowledge. So I'm assuming that they're all scholars of some sort. So, they would speak in that type of a tone.
Right. And especially, it seems to go with their sort of planetary history with Tristis, where they were going over there to help the Tristans, discover the secret of life. I think you're right. I think there's definitely like a scholarly bent to this species, or at least to the society.
Yep, I would agree. Yeah, a couple of cool shots of Uhura and Spock talking here before we move on to the next section here. I guess they took all the robes off and they're back in their regular garb now that they've disabled all of those guards.
with their poorly drawn Vulcan neck pinches and badass kung fu.
But there's one panel in there on page. Whoops, sorry, I just turned the page by accident. Page 14, panel 2, that shows what I think is a great depiction of Spock and a good depiction of Uhura together there. I think both of them look great.
Totally. Although I will say Spock's ears are a little bit too long, but I'll allow it.
Yeah, it's, it can't be perfect, but his facial features are all really great.
Yeah, very, very severe. Yeah.
Yeah, great shading. Great shading. All right, so ready to move on to part 2 of the comic?
Let's do it.
All right, so we are on what Gold Key does with their issues. They divide them in 2 parts. Not sure why, but... So we're at the halfway mark. So Captain's Log Supplemental. As a result of a cosmic storm, our shuttlecraft has been stranded on Tristis. We have been made virtual slaves enforced by Punisher collars. So the words of Captain Kirk there, giving us a catch-up as if we hadn't just read that whole first half of the comic book. So
I really want to know why they do that.
I don't know. I guess they're trying to model it after the TOS episodes, coming back from commercial break and filling us in on everything that's happened already in case we didn't see it. But Kirk and the crew are in a green field with a bunch of other people, and now there's some bipedal robots as well who look very similar to the floating robots with some legs stuck on them.
And
so
they're red.
They have both models. Yeah, they're a different color. They've also changed clothing. They're now in some white jumpsuits, and we can clearly see their collars there. And they're amongst a bunch of other people out in this green field area, and I guess they look like they're picking up, people in the background are picking up stuff off the ground and putting it into bags. So Kirk and the crew are kind of lingering around there, and Kirk starts to talk to another woman that he comes across who is one of the workers there, and he's asking her what she's doing there and what the and she says that they serve the life within. It is within us and we are within it. And that's not enough for Kirk. He grabs her, demands that she tell him more, and of course that act of aggression is enough to set off his security collar and shocks him, throwing him to the ground. The robot guards show up and decide that the Enterprise crew members can't be integrated into the rest of the slave labor workforce, and they must be segregated as they have violated what they call the alien control dictum. So they're taken to a room somewhere that's kind of they say it's a comfortable room, away from the other humans, and they're left alone to their own devices. Kirk is speculating that the answers that they're looking for are somehow tied to the energy source that feeds off of the moss that they were harvesting. So back on Kodor, Spock is standing in Queen Arma's chamber, and he has discovered, much to his shock and awe, that she is also a Vulcan. But,
yes.
Yeah, but as Arma tells us, she is the daughter of Vulcan's last ambassador to Kodor. So she's only partially Vulcan, as is Spock. So she knows why he has come, but still she will not authorize a rescue attempt on Spock's comrades on Tristis because such an attempt would bring war between the two planets, and Kodor is not exactly up to snuff technologically, and she feels that they would lose outright. So Spock apologizes and accepts her judgment, and instead goes and steals something called a Star Scout spacecraft in order to go look for Captain Kirk and the rest of that crew. So as Spock is flying away, Arma calls to the ship, and she says that they have broadcast to Tristis that one of their Star Scouts has been stolen, and that Spock's human half is very predictable, but she wishes him luck. Back on Tristis, Admiral Khan attacks some of the robots who are guarding them and disables them. He uses the guards' keys to release the collars that they're wearing and sets off on his own to find out where the shuttlecraft has been taken. Kirk sends Chekhov and Officer Manning to follow Admiral Khan in case he needs some help, while Kirk and Chapel go into the city to go to the science ministry. And a robot guard sees them. Lieutenant Chapel destroys it with a kick to the head, and the two take the robot's weapon and enter the building. So we're going to stop here on page 20 before we get to the end, and we'll go ahead and recap a little of the stuff that happened here. And I think, Ian, on page 15, panel 3, there is an exchange that begins here between Kirk and this unnamed woman, and they're talking back and forth, and this conversation felt really TOS to me. Kirk asks why are we prisoners here? What happened to your people? And I'm reading this in Shatner's voice in my head. It's like this, look, I can see this happening on a TOS episode. And she says, we're not prisoners, we're privileged. We serve the life within. It is within us and we are within it. And in the next panel, he grabs her by the shoulders, which we've seen him do in TOS many times before. And he says,
Kirk shoulder grab.
This life within, what is it? You know, and she says, if you cannot link with it, then it's not for you to know. Please ask me no more. Be happy that you're allowed to serve the presence. And Kirk gets even more angry, and I'm responsible for my people. I won't stop asking until I get my answers. And that's when he gets zapped. But this short sequence here felt to me like Warner really captured the essence of Kirk in TOS.
Completely agree. And like, I love her answers too.
Yes.
Right? Like, we serve the life within. What a great, just ambiguous line that, you know, it for you to be able to connect that thread later on in the issue. But it's at the same time, it's just this kind of esoteric line that just sounds great and like science fiction-y, you know?
It does. Yeah, I agree that what she says is both nondescript and extremely informative, depending on, you know, what your knowledge of the rest of the comic book is, because she pretty much spells out a lot of what's really going on here, but in a way that Kirk won't understand it and the readers won't yet understand it, but will become much clearer as we finish out the rest of the issue. So very well written dialogue.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what it sort of implies, which I'll elaborate on more once we get to what the life within is. But like, I don't know. There's just something really, really science fiction-y about it, and it's got. I mean, it's definitely got the Star Trek feel, right? Especially with the dialogue, but it's got a very science fiction of the 70s feel.
It does.
Like, there was this real character to science fiction in the 70s where stuff was thought through, but didn't have to be like completely plausible, right? It just had to, I can't come up with a better word for it than just be science fiction-y. and this just hits it on the nail.
Absolutely does.
Even down to the outfits that they're wearing and the shock collars. The shock collars are very science fiction of the 60s and 70s, right?
Yeah, they definitely are. Again, Buck Rogers-ish. They look very Buck Rogers-y to me.
There's so much about this whole scene that just tickles me in that way, because I'm a really big fan of science fiction from that era, and just the fact that it just feels perfectly of that era just tickles me right where I like to be tickled. Don't make it weird.
I'm not going to make it weird. I'm going to gloss right over that. I'm going to gloss right over that and say that here's another thing about Warner and his Star Trek knowledge that I really love, that on page 17, the last panel, Spock delivers one of his trademark lines, "Live long and prosper." Absolutely love the fact that he says "live long and prosper" to Queen Arma. That is great. I think that's the first time we've heard him utter those words in Gold
I was
Key.
thinking that too.
So,
I was trying to remember. I didn't have enough time to go back and just read through all of them. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that's
I
the
don't
first.
recall him ever saying that. And, good on you, Warner,
Yeah,
for
love this
bringing that
guy.
in. Very glad to see that. And speaking of dialogue, I think Nurse Chapel gets some interesting dialogue in this issue as well. I think the two female characters are definitely treated far better than TOS treated its female characters for the most part in
Yeah,
this issue. So Nurse Chapel here gets to question this life within, and she's wondering if they're speaking in theological terms
or scientific, or
yeah. I like the fact that she's thinking about it and figuring things out or trying to talk it through and
yeah,
find the answers. And
trying to solve the puzzle.
yeah, she's done some great stuff in previous issues too. So I think the way that these two, her and Uhura both in this issue, get to do some really cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Although there is, it's not even a line. It's just like one word that she speaks later on. I'll get to it. I'll point it out when we get to it. But but it's just like nails on a chalkboard for me.
All right, so we'll wait until we get there. But so what is up with these Vulcan ambassadors?
They are prolific, aren't they?
Yeah. So once again, we've got another Spock-like scenario here with a Vulcan ambassador to an alien world, and having a kid. I like the fact that she has so much in common with Spock, but I really wish that they would have explored it a lot more. Again, the short form of the comic really doesn't lend itself to that.
True.
But if this was a TOS episode, that they would have taken a lot of time to explore that, because that was Spock's eternal struggle.
Yeah, it was the core of his character. Yeah.
And you were meant to believe that he was the only one of his kind, the only human Vulcan hybrid, right? So if he were to meet another Vulcan hybrid, that would have been an epiphany for him, right? I mean, that would have been he may have had to show some emotion.
Mm-hmm.
He probably wouldn't have, but he may have had to show some emotion. I would have loved to have seen, some dialogue exchanges between the two of them.
Totally. They were together for way too short of a time. Plus, I love her character design.
Yes.
She's got the hat with these ribbons that come out, and maybe it's just because they colored it green, but it kind of has this Medusa-esque feel to it.
It certainly does.
The only problem that I had with her character design is that she doesn't actually look like she's Vulcan.
No, you don't see ears at all, really.
Yeah, and her eyebrows are, well, I guess they're Savicky, like not Robin Curtis, but Kirstie Alley Savicky.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you think about, Spock looks Vulcan. I mean, he doesn't look necessarily like a human Vulcan hybrid. Maybe the Vulcan genes were a little more dominant over the human ones, but maybe the Kadarian genes are more dominant over the Vulcan genes.
Yeah, could be.
For her, maybe she doesn't take on as many of the Vulcan features, but
could be. But just when Spock says, "Live long and prosper, Queen Arma, I find it most unexpected that you are a Vulcan," that makes it sound like he was able to just look at her and from that first glance, holy crap, that's a Vulcan.
Maybe he detected it with his Vulcan mind powers.
I did not consider that.
Yeah, that's entirely possible as well. But no, I do like, as you said, I love the character design and the fabric, the flowing fabric. There's only a few shots of her, but each one you can clearly see how the fabric that's around her, the ribbons in the hair and the pieces that are attached to her arms are they look really cool. I love the way that they're drawn.
Absolutely. I think Giolitti probably had a lot of fun drawing those, because it shows. It's one of those things where you just look at it and you're like, wow, that's really great. And it's all you can think about is wow, that's just really greatly drawn.
Yeah, I really wish that, and she's almost kind of a throwaway character. You don't really see her much.
Yeah, which was unfortunate, right? Because she's this co-leader, and she's got this really interesting backstory, and then what happens?
Yeah, nothing. She's gone.
She's just there to say, good luck, as Spock steals something in a very un-Vulcan-like manner.
Yes, Spock stealing that shuttle is a little bit un-Spock-like, but I think he's in desperation at that point. He's not getting any help, so he kind of takes it upon himself to steal this Star Scout ship, which I like the fact that Giolitti went ahead and created a new design for this shuttle and didn't just kind of cannibalize some of the other stuff that he's done or make it look like an Enterprise shuttle. It's kind of its own thing.
Right.
Yeah, which is kind of cool. I like the fact that Nurse Chapel says that she was trained in advanced computronics. I knew that was
that's the word.
Bell ringer. Was it? That was the word?
That was the word. Oh, it's like
Oh.
nails on a chalkboard. Computronics? Like, come on. That's not a
It's
real
Star
word.
Trek. So the dialogue here, I'll read the actual sentence, is Nurse Chapel is saying, if we can get to their computers in the main chamber above the observation pen, I might be able to work them. I've been trained in advanced computronics. To which Kirk answers, let's go.
Yeah.
You know what? That didn't really bother me. It felt kind of Star Trek to me. But
what is computronics?
I don't know. But what was that thing Uhura talked about in a prior issue about watching videos? I forget what she said, but there was a term that they made up.
Yeah.
For that.
Yeah, and I remember the one that you're talking about, but I can't remember what the term is.
Yeah, I can't either. But
yeah, I don't know. Like, maybe it's just because like I've spent so much of my life involved with like computer science and
I have to
and all that that it just rubs me the wrong way. That one word.
Okay, I'll give you.
But I love that she is trained in computers. I won't say it.
Yeah, and she does nothing nurse-like really in this issue.
Yeah, but you get the feeling that that Kirk brought her because she's still a medical professional, and so you don't know if you're going to need a medical professional.
Yeah, but she can fill a dual role,
right?
Because in this issue she's Lieutenant Chapel as opposed to Nurse Chapel, so she's filling a different role.
Yeah,
here, which is cool. So, anything else you want to say about this section before we move on to the finale?
Well, there was one. It's mostly just a pacing thing, and it's on page 19, panel 4. The panel before that, Khan knocks out the robots, right?
Yep.
That gives the crew the opportunity to take off their 70s sci-fi suits and the shock collars. There's the guy in the background. I want to say his name is Manning.
Yep.
He's kind of pulling his collar off, but I don't know. It's just weird because there's just that one transition panel, and there's no dialogue indicating that they're transitioning from so it's just visual, and the visuals are vague, and so it made it so that when I was reading through the first time, I went on to the next page. And I was like, hey, wait a minute. Why is everyone just back in their normal uniforms? Like, what happened?
Yeah, they don't say what they're doing. It's just Khan talking about how Kirk has kind of underestimated him by saying, he has no field experience. And that's where you're seeing Manning pulling his collar off and Chekhov taking his white suit off.
Right.
But Kirk has already taken his off. And in the next panel, everyone's back in their normal clothes. And you flip to the next page, and it's almost, it's not, they don't draw enough attention to the fact that they've taken the collars off, I don't think.
Right. It's like the least escapey of escape sequences.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. So yeah, you know what, and I didn't even really think about it much until you brought that up here. I guess I didn't think much about how they got the collars off. I didn't even notice.
Yeah, it just struck me weird because it was like, they're in one state, especially because, I'd sort of gotten used to them in the 1970s sci-fi suits, that it was very apparent to me when they were gone.
Let's see. Yeah, I guess before we move on, I also did want to, we kind of glossed over what I thought was a really, really cool action panel here on page 20 with the Lieutenant Chapel boot.
Yeah.
Just sticking out. I mean, you don't see her. All you see is the boot.
Mm-hmm.
Kicking this robot in the head, and it's got another one of these fantastic Gold Key Comics sound effects.
Bang!
Yeah, SPAAANNNGGG. So that's the sound of Chapel's boot hitting the hollow robot's head. You see some bolts kind of flying out. So she must have had a hell of a lot of force.
Yeah.
in that kick to dislodge this robot's head and take it out. And the robot says, squee-ee-ee. Squee. The robot actually has a reaction sound to being kicked.
Oh, that's so good.
That was brilliant. And I love the robot's reactions to seeing Kirk and Chapel. It's running towards them with its hand in the air, with its fingers spread out, and it says, "Humans, halt."
Right. That's so good.
Brilliant.
Oh,
It looks like he's trying to like, hey, wait up. Hey guys, wait up. But
right. Yeah. And for that enthusiasm that he had for joining their party, what does he get? A kick in the face.
In the face. Poor robot. They finally see him on the pad. He's kind of lump on the ground.
Right.
Laying his arm just kind of wiggled all over the place. All right. So you ready to move on to the exciting conclusion?
Yeah.
To this comic? All right.
Let's do it.
So we are in a computer control room, and we've come across Minister Tonar, and this is actually a really cool panel. I love these little robots are flying around in the air. These are so cool. Again, I wish they'd done something more with, but we'll talk about it a little bit more in a minute. Tonar tells Kirk that his race had mastered the secrets and sciences of the universe, but did not know their own planet. So Kirk's got the drop on him, and he's trying to get the info out of him about what is really going on here. And we find out that beneath the moss, there's a layer that they couldn't analyze until they were finally able to penetrate it. And they learned that their planet is actually hollow, much like a giant egg. So inside that egg were energies that were what they considered life in its most fundamental form, a link to creation itself. So at that same time, we see Admiral Khan is searching for the shuttlecraft. He's kind of below the city streets, and he finds kind of a hatchway that he feels drawn to. He thinks that the shuttle may be inside this hatchway, so he goes to open it up and winds up getting sucked into a seemingly bottomless pit. It's like a shaft, and he somehow survives the fall, and he starts to, I guess, almost hallucinate here. And he starts mumbling to himself, "I am the universe. I am alone. Somebody help me."
Yeah, you know what that reminded me of is like the old like 1950s, marijuana propaganda movies, like Reefer Madness
PSAs,
and stuff like that.
Yeah, the kids in the hallways, the staircase.
Yeah,
it'll
like
make
I want to
feel good.
I want to use that panel as like a, drugs, not even once poster.
Well, it would be great because it looks like he's actually hallucinating. He's surrounded by these strange looking, almost like gaseous blobs or something of that. It's nondescript, and he's fallen into the middle of the planet, and he's hearing strange voices talking around him. And we're getting a little bit of a explanation from Tonar that says that in small doses, what they saw inside the planet could expand the minds of any thinking creature. But for it's when everybody's ready to accept them, they'll reveal themselves. So these creatures are almost like, what was that episode of TOS with the ambassador in a box? And
the Medusans.
The Medusans. And when you opened it up, you lost your mind, right?
Yeah. Is there in truth no beauty?
Perfect. And this is kind of what it reminds me of, but this is he's actually inside the chamber with those creatures, so he's kind of losing his mind.
Oh, yeah.
So Tonar explains to Kirk that the Tristan scientists created this thing they call an eye, which they use to... I guess it's a really strange description here. I'll actually read it. It says, "A shape your mind conjures for identification since the mass of energy has no form. From the unstable forces contained in our planet, mental energy is the required tool." I had to read this a bunch of times, and I still didn't quite get it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It was a bit too vague for me, and I'd already sort of started getting, my own kind of mental model of what was really going on in this world before they got to this page. Mm-hmm. And this I don't know, it just clashed with that in a way because of its vagueness.
Yep.
Because of its confusing dialogue. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Reading it now, I still can't completely understand what they mean. And he goes on to say that this eye that they have is actually made up of the 6 scientists who were sent down into the planet's center to study the energy. They became pure mental energy. It's really weird. The description goes on to say that they increased the powers of the planet 100-fold. The eye's emanations reach to the furthest reaches of the galaxy, and they can now travel with it.
Yeah, it's almost like they created Sauron.
Yeah. Yeah, he explains that if the secret of the eye were to be revealed, his civilization would have nothing more to strive for. Its goal of ultimate knowledge having been achieved. So that's why they sent away the Kadarian people, and they've been trying to keep people from discovering their planet or understanding what they're doing ever since, because they're afraid they'll lose their discovery and it'll be exploited. So Kirk tells Tonar that it's short-sighted to believe that the universe is finite, and convinces him to tell his people the truth. He promises the Science Lord that the Federation will protect them and allow them to share his knowledge with something called the United Scientific Collective. So they get Admiral Khan out of the center of the planet, and he explains that he's a changed person after having seen what he saw, and he wants to transfer to the planet Tristis to work on the project. And all of the difficulties and struggles that he had with Kirk and the potential court-martials for circumventing Khan's instructions are all kind of thrown to the wayside now that Khan has a new purpose in life. So
yeah,
the Enterprise crew is taken back to Kodor, and they perform the induction ceremony, and it becomes a part of the Federation. So that ends the story. Yes. I still can't figure out exactly what the hell's going on here.
Yeah, this was the part where the issue kind of broke down for me. Right, so they've got the moss that's kind of feeding the life within, and the life within is some sort of, well, life in the planet is a shell around, right, almost like it's an egg.
Mm-hmm.
And that got me thinking of, like, did you ever read the Peter David New Voyages?
Yeah,
I think it was called New Voyages, no, New Frontier.
Oh no, that
I think that was it. It was the one with Captain Mackenzie.
No, I haven't read that. No.
Okay, so Elizabeth Shelby's the XO on that ship. You should read it. You'd like it.
Oh.
Anyway, they have this thing, because remember Sulu even had that line where, like, may the great bird of the galaxy bless you and all that.
Yep.
So in that series, they actually encounter, no spoilers, but they encounter the great bird of the galaxy, and it's, just this giant, beast of a thing that uses a planet to incubate. And it got me thinking along those lines that there was some sort of, like, incredible life form that they were, feeding and incubating inside this planet that would eventually, like, come out. Right, because as soon as they discovered what the secret was, once the Tristans discovered the secret, they banned everyone from their planet, and they became very, very protectionist.
Yep. And,
like, that also felt to me like, okay, well, if there's some sort of life form in there that, they want to, like, keep safe, then, that's what you would do, right? Like, you wouldn't, let people just land willy-nilly on your planet anymore. And so, like, I'd already been kind of thinking along those lines, and then you have, like, Khan's acid trip, right? Where he's like, I am the universe, I am alone, somebody help me. Just these really, like, the eye. So they had 6 scientists that were sent to study some kind of energy, and we're meant to believe, I guess, that the energy is the life within. It's not actually like a life, but maybe it is. Maybe it's, like, non-corporeal.
I couldn't figure that out.
Yeah, but then he's talking about how the eye is the thing that's able to emanate its reach to the furthest reaches of the galaxy and travel with it. So it's like, is it the eye that's the secret? Is the secret that the eye was formed to study that's the secret? Like, it's too confusing to me, and this part of the issue really broke down for me, and it was going along at a really good pace, and then it was like the wheel fell off.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to actually read this bit of dialogue here. So this panel that we're talking about, we're seeing a cutout in a wall, and there is what appears to be maybe a screen there, and on the screen is this image of an amorphic yellow blob. It almost looks like boogers or something.
Yeah.
Or like a piece of fat that's on uncooked chicken, you know?
Yeah.
And the dialogue here, so we've got Tonar, the science lord, and he's got his hands in the air as if he's explaining something heavy, and he says, "We created the eye, a shape your mind conjures for identification since the mass of energy has no form. From the unstable forces contained in our planet, mental energy is the required tool. Kirk, that thing you see on the screen is the 6 scientists that were sent to study that energy. All 6 of them. A collective intelligence, pure, unsiphoned mental energy. More than you know, the eye has increased their energies 100-fold. The eye's emanations reach to the furthest reaches of this galaxy, and they can now travel with it." I'm no clearer now.
Yeah.
Having read that again.
It doesn't help clear it up.
No.
It's just, I don't understand what's going on. And I kind of feel like that's the point, right? With Khan's reactions later, he's this changed man after coming down off of his mushroom trip.
Yeah.
Where he's like, now he understands the universe, and, his petty squabbles with Kirk are, insignificant and all this. But it's Star Trek, right? And Star Trek, you get, like 99% of the time, you get an explanation of some mysterious force, right? Like, it's not just...
I think I'm kind of getting a little more of this here if I back up a little bit. If we look at the 2 panels, I'm sorry to the listeners if you're confused by what we're doing here. We're just trying to understand this a little bit more. Yeah. So on the same page, on page number 24, the first 2 panels depict Admiral Khan in this state where he's confused and he says, "I'm the universe, I'm alone, somebody help me." But there are 4 text bubbles here that I believe are maybe the voices of the energies that are in that room, or the
I think
scientists.
You're right.
And it says, the first one is a question. It says, "Is this Tonar's doing?" So in my mind right now, I'm thinking the energies are questioning whether or not Tonar sent Admiral Khan there. They don't realize that he accidentally fell into that space, that maybe Tonar was sending him there. And another voice says, "No, let us hope that what he saw didn't permanently damage his brain." So I guess either one of the other scientists that have been turned into energy, or another one of the entities that live in the center of the planet realizes that this was accidental and is hoping that Khan hasn't been damaged or driven crazy by accidentally falling into this room and seeing them.
And looking Cthulhu in the face.
Yeah, and the next panel said, and there's another bit of dialogue that says, "If Tonar only realized that in small doses, the eye, quote, in quotes, could expand the mind of any thinking creature." And then another bubble says, "But that is for them to reconcile. When everyone is ready to accept us, we shall reveal ourselves." So I'm thinking what they're saying in these 2 panels, what the actual energies, the voices are saying, kind of almost contradicts a little bit of what Tonar thinks. So Tonar doesn't seem to understand that the energies could be used to enhance themselves or enhance their mental abilities. Tonar is kind of going off on a whole different tangent about the energies, right? It's a little clearer, but not completely clear right now. I think that the energies are saying Tonar doesn't understand what they're really for, or what they're...
because he hasn't really witnessed them beyond that screen.
Right.
The way that Khan has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. We could probably talk about this for another couple of hours and still not completely understand. But at least I feel like I have like a seed a seed of an understanding here of what's going on. I think that Tonar doesn't completely understand what the energies are because of what you said. I don't think he's experienced them directly as Khan has, but I think if he was actually able to get into the room with them and actually hear the voices of those energies, because Khan can clearly hear them, that maybe that would be the key to truly understanding what those energies really are and what their purpose might be.
Can we say, though, at the very least, that Tonar is like beautifully drawn, especially in panel 4?
Oh yes, absolutely. The when he's in gray, when he's in the shadow, oh yeah, that's spectacular.
And was it just me, or do his eyebrows look maybe a little Vulcan?
Yeah, either that or he's really, really furrowing his brow.
Right.
To almost painful levels.
Yeah.
Very weird. But yeah, absolutely excellent drawing there, especially in that last panel. Now, there's a panel on page 25 at the last panel. Really threw me for a loop. This is after everything has been said and done, and they've kind of talked everybody down, and we're resolving the storyline here, and everything's okay. The Enterprise crew and Tonar are walking out stage right. They're going down a hallway, and you're seeing a pistol laying on the floor, and they're all walking away from it. And I thought, when I saw that, I thought that Tonar was going to grab the pistol, right? Because in the panel previous to that, he looks like he says, "Excuse me, I have something to tell my people." It looks like he's hurriedly running off. Like, I thought maybe he was trying to break away from them, and he was going to grab the gun and try to protect, his discovery one last time.
Oh, like on the next page?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen. So I was wondering what the intent of that panel was.
Yeah, I don't know, right? Because that's the pistol that Kirk initially, when he went into that room, pointed at Tonar. The only person, to lay it down would have been Kirk, right? Mm-hmm. So to have that be lying on the ground, I'm just thinking this through out loud here. To have that be lying on the ground means that it was Kirk who laid it there, and so it's a reflection of him, and the best that I can come up with is just that it's some sort of acknowledgement that, Kirk is satisfied that they have come to a peaceful resolution to this.
Yes, and now he can lay down his arms.
Yeah, but it's a weird way of doing it.
It certainly is, and it made me think something different. But no, your explanation is very good. Maybe it was meant to have more meaning than I originally detected.
Kind of awkward in terms of storytelling for it to be drawn that way for the last panel. I don't know, because that's the gun, you hadn't seen even in pages, and so since page 21, and so it was weird for it to show up again.
Yeah.
At all, really. The ending in general was just, and we've had this problem with a lot of Gold Key.
Oh yeah.
Whereas the ending is just, it felt way too rushed.
It did.
To the sense that you don't really get, I feel like, a satisfying resolution out of it. But this one had so many threads that were still hanging loose that I wanted more of them to be tied at the end. And we didn't get any of that.
I agree. And the one thing that did bother me, now I actually really did like this issue for the most part. It felt very TOS to me, although it did feel rushed. The one thing that I felt was super predictable, and the one thread that they did wrap up at the end that kind of made me frown a little bit, because I kept thinking to myself, this is going to have to be this way at the end of this issue, because Kirk is threatened with court-martial for insubordination and for disobeying Khan's order. So you knew they had to do something to either going to kill Admiral Khan off, or he had to Kirk had to either save his life, and so there's a quid pro quo thing going on.
Yeah. Or he just had to go on a mushroom trip.
Yeah. So at the end of it, there's actually I didn't read the final captain's log here, but this kind of explains the wrap up and how Kirk isn't going to get in trouble for any of this. It says, Captain's log, personal Admiral Khan admits his mind has pushed into his subconscious most of what he saw when he stumbled into the eye, but I observe he is indeed a changed person. Other than that, the universe seems frustratingly unchanged in the view of making what could be humanity's greatest discovery. I don't know what Khan saw in that eye, but I envy him for having seen it.
And I really liked that log too.
I did too, but
but it didn't really tie up any loose strings.
Well, it tied up the loose string of Khan wanting to, prosecute Kirk for insubordination. So we know Kirk's job is safe, but the gravity of what Kirk is saying here when he says the universe seems frustratingly unchanged in the view of making what could have been humanity's greatest discovery.
Which is what?
Right. I didn't get that. The gravity of that discovery being that significant.
Yeah.
There was nothing in the issue that made me think that, oh my God, they found the genesis of life.
Right. Like they found God and he really needs a starship for some reason.
Yeah, exactly. That doesn't happen for a while.
Yeah.
But Kirk seeming to know more about what happened in this issue than the readers do, that kind of bugged me on the way out. I felt cheated in a way, like, okay, Kirk gets it, but I don't. Why don't I get this? And let me tell you another thing. In that last panel, if I was any of those people in the foreground and those dudes were blowing those vuvuzelas in my ear, I'd have pulled my phaser out and stunned those suckers because those are clearly vuvuzelas. And
right. Yep. Yeah. And those are loud.
They are very, very loud and very, very annoying. But there's a scene at the end here with a big celebration. The party for the indoctrination of Kodar into the Federation. So all's well that ends well, I suppose.
I suppose. And, hey, now the Federation has a new member.
Oh, yeah. You know what? Speaking, I totally overlooked something here that I wanted to bring up because you were so annoyed by the Lieutenant Chapel Computronics.
Oh, the Computronics.
She also says something that made me kind of scratch my head, although I did dismiss it because it is Star Trek. On page 21, panel 4, she says, she's talking about the data that's coming out of the computer, and she says there are reports about psychosociological experimentation and interplanetary insect surveys.
Yeah, so that was interesting, right? Because that kind of added to the mystery a little bit of what was going on, maybe not with underneath the planet, but at least with the people who lived on its surface, right?
Agreed.
Because interplanetary insect surveys, well, that certainly points to, this being at least an interplanetary, if not interstellar species.
True, but I wasn't really sure exactly why they'd be doing insect surveys.
Yeah, I don't know either. But the sociological experimentation, though, right? So that, I think, pointed to the workers outside, how because Kirk kind of alludes to that in the very next panel, right? The way that, the woman who's like, we serve the life within, there was some sort of kind of top-down, and you kind of get the feeling that this society is really kind of totalitarian, right?
Yeah.
With like the Ministry of Science and I am Science Lord, and that sort of thing, right? And so, like, it would not surprise me at all if there was some sort of like Orwellian sociological experiment going on to keep certain cases of people in line, basically.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I just thought it was an interesting word choice. And of course, it's another one of those things that isn't really explored anymore.
Right.
You're left to assume what they were doing with those experiments. And I guess that all the people that they captured and were forcing to harvest moss were victims of this experimentation.
But that kind of thing, that's one of the things that I tend to like about when they do that kind of thing in Gold Key, like, because you get this tip of the iceberg look into the characters and societies and alien cultures and worlds and all that sort of thing. And just that one line, combined with a couple other things, really did point to like a really rich backstory on the Tristans.
Agreed. Yeah. Well, we talked a lot about these gold keys having these sort of beginnings of threads that we can pull on and expand on in our own conversations and kind of make up our
As we
own
do.
Trek canon for these comics. And that's as weird and as awkward as some of these issues are. There's always interesting things to talk about that come out of them. So this is one of many of them.
Like, for example, what was the name of the planet? Quadar? Quodar.
Odar. I thought it was Quodar.
Yeah. Quodar is now a Federation member, but they've resolved the issue apparently with the Tristans. Yep. So is Tristis now going to be in the Federation? Because we don't see any of them in that little parade thing at the end.
Oh, yeah, good point. I don't know the answer to that, but I would assume that, Kirk is going to hook him up with the United Scientific Collective. So I guess it's only a matter of time before they are also inducted into the Federation, along with Quodar.
Yeah, which would be like quite a coup for Kirk, right? Like,
absolutely.
A feather in his cap.
Yeah, he nailed the twofer.
Yeah. Without even trying.
He got the exacta, quite by accident, because they crashed. They would have never even known what was going on Tristis had they not crash landed there with the freak storm that they flew through.
Right.
So hey, it's serendipitous. It was meant to be.
Overall, this was a pretty good issue, but like I said, I think it just the wheel fell off at the very end, like the last 2 maybe 3 pages.
I can agree. I can agree with you on that. But for the purposes of our essential voting, it's more aligned with what the issue brings to the Star Trek universe, not necessarily if we like it or not. So I am going to be forced to vote essential on this, regardless of my feelings of confusion on the ending, simply for 2 things. One, we're introduced to Admiral Khan, who is an interesting, strange new alien race, but is unidentified. But I like the fact that Gold Key brings a brand new admiral into the storyline here, and they kind of have their way with it. They have to take their artistic license and create a whole new admiral. And an even bigger reason is because we've learned that Spock is not alone. He is not the only half Vulcan out there. We have another half Kodarin, half Vulcan, and I would wish that they would expand on her a little bit more. But I think the bringing of that character into the Star Trek universe is significant for Spock. So I think that this issue, it's definitely worth a read just to see those 2 things introduced.
Yeah, and I actually agree with you. I would also rate this one as essential, not just because of the points you raised, but also, I mean, we get to see so many like big firsts, right? We've got the whole setup of the thing with, admitting the planet into the Federation. We've got this new thing on dilithium preservatives. We've got Spock's first utterance of live long and prosper. Oh, and we've got real Star Trek feel throughout the whole thing. Oh, it's not one of those stories that just feels like, it's a kind of pulpy sci-fi story with some people who have familiar sounding names. So for all of those reasons and all the reasons that you stated, definitely essential on this one.
Excellent. So issue number 31 of Gold Key Comics gets a double essential vote from Ian and I. So another one you guys need to read if you want to go back and check it out. So we'd love to hear what you have to say about this episode and all of our other ones. You can catch us on social media at facebook.com/the Tricorder Transmissions. And we have our own website, thetricordertransmissions.com. And Ian, where can people find you on social media?
Just find me on Twitter at Ian128K as in kilo.
Feel free to shoot us a note and talk about this episode or any of our other ones even further. And if you would also be so kind, if you haven't done so already, so many of you already have, and we appreciate it. If you would jump over to iTunes if you can and look up the show and give us a review, it would be really, really helpful in helping us to get new listeners into the show. And even if you just want to give a star rating, if you don't feel like writing up a whole review, just go in there and click on the number of stars you feel we're worth. And we would absolutely love it if you would do that. Thanks so much in advance for doing that. All right. So, everybody, thanks for listening as always, and we'll see you next time on the Tricorder Transmissions. Hi there, thanks again for listening. If you're cruising the galaxy looking for even more Trek talk, why not visit our good friends Bill and Dan over at TrekGeeks.com? They've got a great podcast that covers a wide range of Star Trek topics, so you're sure to find something you'll love. And if you're in the mood for some awesome tunes, then you really need to head over to 5yearmission.net. The guys are writing a song for every episode of the original series, and each one is absolutely brilliant. So that's TrekGeeks.com and 5yearmission.net. Check them out today.